Get this guy going here.
I love that kind of stuff, man. You never know. You never know.
You just never know. It's a whole new era of broadcasting.
All right, Rob, here we go.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. We have with us...
Can you remember?
You're right there, Rob. You're live, Rob.
Oh, we're a little latent.
You have latency?
Well, you should be fine. What are you looking at, Rob?
I have a Yeah, 8 latency. I'm echoing major.
Wow.
Anyway,
there you go.
Billy Cobham is one of the... Yeah, it's echoing back on me. It's completely echoing back.
So unplug and plug back in, or just talk without listening to yourself. Are you watching it on YouTube? That's why. Don't shut off the YouTube. Only look on this stream, remember? Only on the stream channel I gave you.
There we go. I got it.
Is.
Billy Cobham is a true legend. Firstly, as a band leader, he's responsible for some of the greatest and most influential records in jazz and fusion ever. One of which, Crosswinds, he reinvented at the time of our interview, which will be released tomorrow. He also has worked with Miles Davis. He's a founding member of Mahavishnu and has toured with everyone from Peter Gabriel and Jack Bruce to Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead. But mostly, the thing that strikes me most about him is since I became familiar with him 40 years ago, no matter who he's playing with, he always brings his heart and soul to the stage, plays his ass off, and improves whatever is going on musically. I am truly honored that for the second time I get to speak, and this time with my boy Seth, with Billy Cobham. Billy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. Seth, good to see you, man.
Yeah.
You need to shave, though, man, because I mean, I had to shave. My wife made me shave, so you had to shave.
You can't see my back. What are you talking about?
I shaved for you, Billy. I shaved for you last time, too.
You're looking great. You guys are looking great. I got a problem.
Billy, what is the stay-in-place experience like for you?
Well, I don't know if you can see this, but I had to finally break down and get my mallet chops back. So I've just been working on that, and aside with the drums and all, but it's been really great just it's forced me to write some and it's, how can I say, investigate the problems that I've had with some of the arrangements, and just to try to clean things up for what I feel will be. I'm convinced it'll be a great future down the road, but so I'm just making strong use of the time, working out, Tai Chi, whatever in the house, in the morning with my wife, because we're here in Panama. You guys around?
Yeah. Panama, though.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, everybody went silent on me. I went, uh-oh. But yeah, sure. So we look into the Gulf of Panama, and so there's a strand that's about 6 miles long. You can walk, I should say 3 miles one way or the other. And so we walk it in the mornings, and then before breakfast and stuff. But that just really actually started because we've been in quarantine now for 2 months. And that's 6 days where Fine and my wife can go outside for 2 hours each day. 2 hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I can go out for 2 hours on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Sunday is a full 24-hour curfew.
Oh, wow.
And so that happened. That started back in early March. It's now May, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up until probably around mid-June.
Now, are you spending time with other musicians doing the thing where you guys are sharing tracks and then you're laying on top of the tracks and stuff like that? Or are you interacting at all with other musicians at this time?
No, I am not. Just combination of being lazy.
This guy knows all about that.
And that it's my fault. But on the other hand, I haven't gotten a whole lot of calls to do that kind of stuff. I'm preparing for a project that I hope can take off. Everybody's in, even technically Dennis Chambers is in as well.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's in, if we have it right, we'll do a live streaming series of how my approach to playing drums in a simplified manner. And so I'm working on that now. It'll come through Stages, which is in Maryland, with Charles Simon. And so I'm just working on the syllabus for that. And the whole objective is that Dennis will be at home, and I'll be wherever I am, which is probably either here. By that time, hopefully I'll be back in Europe, because we do have some work that starts around August. And so I'll be able to do that on a subscription basis for about 10 lessons out of about possible 30 or 40 different presentations that I'll be doing from a studio that I can't access now. I feel, as much as I love my Roland drums, they are not my drums. And so there's a whole nother thing that happened with that. And so I need to play acoustically to get a feel for that, and to show the relationship in my presentations as to how drums relate to the musical perspective more than just the rhythmical perspective of playing. Nothing wrong with being a rhythmist, but the perfect rhythmist for me, who just, bless his heart, just passed away, was Jimmy Cobb. And Jimmy Cobb had this thing, but it was like you could depend on him like it was, like he was taking the train in Switzerland. He was right on the money. The timing was cool. He has a feeling, and that was all that was needed for that kind of music at the time. He was very sensitive to what everybody else was doing, and it was right there. But the drum set can be more than that. It depends on whose hands it's in, and not just the hands. It's about what the musician is hearing, in addition to the rhythm pattern, and keeping things simple but effective. And so this is what my whole presentation is about. So I've been devoting my time to developing that concept.
Did you get time with Jimmy Cobb when you were young?
Sure. My dad was a musician and a mathematician, and he took me one day. I guess it had to be around, my brother was if he was born, he was still maybe 2. And we were living in Brooklyn. Anyway, we went to town because my dad had he knew Dexter and a whole bunch of people, Kenny Clark, just friends. And he played piano, and went into town and went to there was I can't say if it was at the Musicians Union or at the Edison Hotel. Somehow the Edison Hotel, I was like 7 years old, maybe, or no, 12, somewhere in there. So it was like 54. So I'm 10, 11 years old, can't be more. And I go there to see a lot of musicians. I saw Papa Joe, who was at the time like playing with Basie, I think. There's a lot of musicians, drummers around, but the one person who my dad introduced me to was this man named Jimmy Cobb. And I had no idea, what his connection, because they hadn't made Kind of Blue yet. And I just knew him as one of the jazz drummers that was on the scene. And I always remembered that when I went to shake his hand, I lost my hand in his hand because his hand was that big that I couldn't figure out where my hand was. And it wasn't hard, it was just soft, but I was sort of like, my hand was inside a glove of marshmallows, And so when it finally came out, I was like, wow. And those are the things that I remember about Jimmy. And then the next time I saw him to speak with him on any level was in Zurich, Switzerland, maybe 15, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago.
You lived there, right?
Yeah, sure, at the time. And he was playing in a jazz club. And the leader was a trumpet player from Lugano, Switzerland, who's a great trumpet player, and I can't remember his name right now. I should be, they're gonna wave their finger at me, I'm sure. But anyway, he was playing in that band, and Jimmy had it down. It sounded just like 91 years old. So we're talking, he was just turning 70, and he was rocking. you know. And I have to say, and he asked me, I said, he came to me in the club at the first set. He said, "What's it sound like?" I said, the cymbal's a little bit overpowering. He said, "I know what to do." He just turned the cymbal a little bit and played a little softer. But I mean, it all just blended in. It was a guy named, the trumpet player was named Ambrosetti, Franco Ambrosetti. And it was just beautiful to watch. It was a great experience for me. And yeah, we all had to go. And he's been an influence in the background along with all the other guys, the usual suspects, as I call them, Elvin, and I mean, even Uncle Roy, who's still around, Roy Haynes, and he's what, 94, 95 years old now, and he's still kicking. But those guys, Blakey, Elvin, of course, Tony, Max, they're all like very strong spirits. Buddy Rich, Belson. Those guys are always in the background for me, to just, yeah.
And you're someone who likes to set up his own drums. Is that part of what gave you the inspiration when you see these legends when you're young, and the subtle adjustment can make such a big difference? Is that something that stays with you and you're like, I got to set my own stuff up?
Well, the reason it's part of it. It's what I set the drums up for on my own when I can. And it's not near enough. It's just to be in touch with each part of the instrument. It's like, how can I put it? You play football, there's certain things about the equipment that you need to know and have to be in touch with all the time. It doesn't mean 24 hours a day physically handling it, but you need to be able to take a look and say, okay, I see what's going on here. I need to make this adjustment or that adjustment based on who you are right at that moment, because the human body is continually changing. And so therefore, so is the mind. Depends on what you want to get from the music. So for me, when someone says to me, you're going to have your drums sent over and have them played and play your drum set for this project, it has a lot to do with me making decisions about who am I working with, what kind of music will probably play. Do I need this kind of drum set? Can I get away with a 5-piece drum set or a snare drum with a towel over it, a hi-hat, and bass drum? I don't know, but I need to be ready for anything. Mm-hmm. And so the more I know about how to set things up to fit in to the glove called the band, the more effective I think I can be, and not just for the band, but selfishly for me first, because I can't lie to myself. If I don't play well, I'll know first. I may try to tap dance my way through it, but music is very, very difficult to lie through. Either you can play or you can't, and so the whole objective is to get the best out of the situation as you can, because it's the one part of the day that should be the best part of the day of your life. That's what you're there for, to play. So why would you, God, want to not play well so that you at least enjoy yourself, and then everybody else will enjoy you even more, because at least they know that the vibe that you send out is, man, I played my buns off, and I know I did. So obviously, you got what you got, and I'm happy with that. And everybody else goes, man, you sounded great, or you felt good. That's where you always want to be.
And we learned in the episode that's coming out tomorrow how you got invited to Bitch's Brew session, and we learned about the thing where he played you played something for him, and then the next day he asked you to play it again. What I want to know is, when you land that gig, do you call someone like Jimmy Cobb and say, hey, man, I'm going to be working? No? Because was he considered part of a different era at that time, and Miles is doing a new thing now?
I never even thought about it. I was so scared. I was like, I need to be on the session. I didn't know it was a Bitches Brew session. I was on, Miles said, you need to be here at be in the studio at 9:00. I said, okay. Or what was the line? Got a rehearsal in his his inimitable way, how would it go like that? What you doing right now? Just home. I'll see you tomorrow night, rehearsal, or see you tonight at rehearsal. Okay, what time? Come on in, 7:00. Come in. Everybody else's people are already there, so he didn't call me at the beginning. Obviously, I didn't know. I don't know where they came from, if they had something before or not, because I was not involved in live performances.
Ever? You never played with him live?
No, I don't think I ever played with Miles live. I can't think of. I would remember that if I remember.
Yeah, I would say you would remember because he'd be looking at you, because he wouldn't be looking at the audience. He'd be looking at you.
Well, the funny part about it is that I was on the bandstand with Miles, taking pictures of Miles with my Hasselblad in Japan, and I was set with. I was the drummer in the Gil Evans Orchestra, and we were set to play in, of all places, Sendai. You know why that city is so important?
No, why?
That was where the tsunami hit,
Oh.
and the atomic reactor is still not working, man.
Yeah.
We did this back in mid 80s, like 83, 84. And we were supposed to work, it was the Gil Evans Orchestra and Miles. And we were supposed to do something with Miles. He was just coming back from a hiatus of about 4 or 5 years, I don't know, or something like that. And they wanted to make a record with him and Gil. And it didn't work out. So at the very end, but we were all there. So we played shows, Yumiori Land and all of that. And Miles was there for that. And we had, the usual suspects in Gil's band, and it was all okay, whether it happened or not. I mean, but while we were, as a band were playing, I was the photographer on the side of the stage, getting as much information as I could in any way, shape, or form I could. And on some occasions, he just, with the dark glasses, would be looking at me, and it was like laser beams,
Yeah.
It made you want to just put the camera down, and just listen and be quiet, unfortunately, Hasselblads make a lot of noise, and it does. It's, as a camera, when they're playing, you're not going to hear it, but sometimes, it's like there's focus, and you realize, I think I'm intruding, or I get the feeling I'm intruding, so I back away, and not.
Do you still have those shots? You ever
Sure,
away somewhere?
Sure, I do. As a matter of fact, I've had some showings, yeah, but in Europe, here or there.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. That's where jazz is still respected.
Well,
big audience, right?
I'm gonna leave all of that alone. No.
Let me ask you this though, Billy, because one of the recurring themes when you talk, or when I've seen you talk or read you, talking about Miles, is the way he used body language in the studio. Can you give some specific examples?
Pointing. He's blowing the valves, and he's about to play something. He's listening, and then he might look up through these dark glasses, if they're on, and he'll point to somebody, and that's when you're supposed to play. If you don't already hear something, can you imagine being in the studio with 5 piano players who are 5 keyboard players, I should say, because Larry played piano, but Larry Young was an organist. And he sat behind the B3, and it looked like it was like a small thumb piano, but because he was such a big cat. Larry Young, I can't be too far off if I say he was around 6'9", he looked like he had this wonderful smile. He looked like the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. And so he had that kind of wonderful face. And then on the head was a Panama hat. And he had a purple muumuu. So it's like this whole thing. And he was a big person. You know, he was on this in the category of a bigger Oscar Peterson, if you can imagine that. You know, he's a big man, young man, and he just his hands never moved past about from here to here, and he had just hit the whole range of the organ. You know, everything was here, and his hands were like, and I just like my eyes were like, what? How? You know, that he was just one. And then you had, of course, in the same studio, going from Larry to Larry's left, the next keyboard player was Joe Zawinul. And then after that, the next keyboard player was Keith Jarrett.
Ah, yeah.
And then after that, the next keyboard player was Chick Corea. You know, and it's like, you're looking at this and you're going, how the beauty of it all is that they never got in anybody's way. No one ever got in each other's way. And if somebody wasn't playing, they were just listening. They were just, to me, it was like me. I was just like, I can't believe this. I've got, those are 4 keyboard players. Herbie still hadn't shown up yet. Okay. Oh, wow. And I'm like, on one of those sessions, he didn't play at all. He just came, gave a Fat Albert Rotunda album to Miles and split, I think. But there was Ron Carter on bass. Harvey Brooks, who now lives in Tel Aviv, was playing bass from Big Brother and the Holding Company. And it's like, come on, man. All these people, what do you do with them? Daum Ramau was one of the percussionists who played with Gilberto, all these people. Of course, Ayrton was there somewhere screaming at somebody or doing something, some chant. It was like nuts, you know?
Yeah, but what wasn't there was ego, it sounds like.
I'm just watching and going, how does this work? And it worked fine. It was I felt like more just a fly on the wall, enjoying listening to all that was being projected because no one got in anyone's way.
That's amazing. That's a testimony to Miles.
Well, it's a test, yeah. And it was a great level of respect because so he rarely ever had to point at anybody. They knew when to play and when not to. And you, beautiful.
And you and Herbie were 2 of the youngest guys. Did you bond at all over that?
Herbie? I didn't know that Herbie. At the time, I didn't know that Herbie was 2 of the young, that was that much. He's 80 years old now. I'm 76. So I guess
2 of the youngest guys in the room, right?
I don't know. You're telling me now. I didn't know. I mean, do the math because I never thought about it that way.
Rob has a knack for that.
No, that's not true. Steve Grossman was there, and Steve Grossman, I played with him and supported him in his high school big band back in 1967, 66. So he couldn't have been more at that time, and we're talking about, he couldn't have been more than 20 years old. He couldn't, 21 at the time. Who else? McLaughlin. Man, so many people were going in, it was like a revolving door of people who now either have clear acknowledgments for what they've done on their instrument as leaders. How Benny Maupin just brought the bass clarinet into existence. I mean, it brought it to another level after Herbie Mann. I mean, it's like things like that. Tenor saxophonist, but the bass clarinet, Benny, monster. And doesn't get enough accolades about that. So many people in that room, and it was a relatively big room. You could fit a small chamber orchestra in there easy for studios. It was CBS. I can't remember. It was on Studio 4 or 5, something like that. Second floor, on 53rd Street and between Lenox and Park. Yeah, back there, or 53rd. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, your lifelong friend Brian Gruber wrote this book, 6 Days at Ronnie Scott's. We talk about it a bunch in the interview, and he basically set up shop at the legendary Ronnie Scott's venue, and he has great insight. It's about how Billy, not just Billy's history, but he's also at the time putting together a band. It's all about getting the material. It's a really good book. But I want to read a quick quote from it because he also talks about Ronnie Scott's history. So this quote's not about you, Billy, but I would like to get your response, and it leads to a question.
Okay.
This is back when Ronnie first went to New York to feel out the scene, because he basically played on cruises just to get to New York.
Yeah.
So he gets to New York, and these are the kind of things he found. There was one especially memorial night when Ronnie Scott heard the great Charlie Parker Quintet with Miles Davis at Three Deuces. Playing next door was Dizzy Gillespie Big Band, and late in the night, Davis sat in and blew with Gillespie. The atmosphere was electric, and Ronnie Scott dreaming his dreams of setting up at a similar kind of club in London. What kind of collaborate? That sort of thing is mind blowing to someone like me, to see Miles Davis sitting with Dizzy like that. What kind of collaborations have you seen, either as an audience member or on stage, that most stick out to you? Spontaneous collaboration.
Spontaneous. That's I'm rummaging right now mentally. Wow, man, oh man. Miles. Okay. Art Blakey, Mothra Festival 81, and I think it was around 1981, 82. I was 81, 82, Off the Wall came out somewhere in there from, that's what I'm trying to get this tied into. So that's Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And I was married to a woman whose son loved that record. And he also loved the Earth, Wind and Fire album. Okay, I can't remember which one, but he had to be all of 5 or 6 years old. Couldn't have been more. And so Dennis we were going up to see my father-in-law in Sweden, and we were driving in a little sports car. And by that time, we're driving. This is summer, driving up to Stockholm from Zurich. That's about a 1,800 kilometer drive. So it took us 2 days, sensible time, to just go 900K, take a hotel in Denmark, drive the rest, take the ferry over and go. Okay. No sooner do I arrive in Stockholm, just north of Stockholm in a small suburban area, I get a call. It's Claude Knobs, and Knobs says, "Where are you?" And I said, "No, I ain't coming back now." He said, "But where are you?" I said, "God, Claude, I'm in Stockholm." He says, "I need you here tomorrow, man. You know, you can't be there." And I'm going, "Claude, I'm in Stockholm." I said, "I heard you." I said, "Take a plane." I said, "I can't, man. I have a car, my family. You know, I just opened up no, I can't come." He said, and then he gave me the price, and I went, let me call you back. And maybe I'll take the car. Then the whole family decided, no, we got to go. And I'm going, no. So we drove all night. We made it back 1,800K through from Stockholm border, Germany, all the way down to Montreux, which is near Geneva, to play with Freddie Hubbard, Charlie Hayden, Joanne Brackeen, Freddie, Charlie, myself. Yeah, because man, I'm gonna miss his name right now because I can't remember. But I'm allowed. I'm now a pensioner. The great drummer who was playing with Monk, he got sick. He was ill. He had had a real problem. And so I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, it'll come to me hopefully. And so I had to take his place, and there was no other way of getting around it. That was a band that was thrown together from other bands. And then right on stage, exactly before we played, the opening act was the Gil Evans Orchestra with a kid with bright red hair bobbing up and down named Simon Phillips. I'd never heard of him before. And he was playing drums. And I'm going, okay, who is this guy? Yeah. And he's playing with the Gil Evans Orchestra. And I'm going, how'd that happen? From where? London? What? Turns out he was playing with The Who or something. It's like, I'm learning all about this. I'm like, get out of here. And that was the first time I heard Simon. And I'm going, what? After all of that was done, the closing act was Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers.
Oh yeah.
And on that bill, I think once that was done, me and Art and Simon played with the Gil Evans Big Band, and traded. It was like a Gretsch drum night trade-offs. And it was like Claude just kept coming up with these different combinations. And on the blues, I think Claude Knobs, the impresario at the time, he was a promoter, may have played harmonica solo. It was just one of those nights. And things like that would happen. And the people in the bands were off the hook incredible, you know. People that I would remember, that was one of the very few times that I played with Charlie Hayden. The last time I played with him prior to that would have been on My Goals Beyond.
Was Ben Riley the drummer you were trying to think of?
That's who I was trying to remember, yes.
And was that the era of Art Blakey when either of the Marsalises were in the band?
That's right. And it was with Branford in the band. Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, it was with Branford in the band, and Branford played tenor, Donald Harrison played alto, and Terence Blanchard, I think, was playing trumpet.
This is what people should know about Art Blakey. So many jazz musicians came through. She was constantly about shining a light and grooming young players. What are your memories of a young Branford? I used to follow the guy around like a puppy dog when he had Kenny Kirkland, Robert Hurst, and Jeff Jane Watts.
Right. Very, very disciplined, very organized. As far as I could see, I got a really good vibe from him all the time. You know, I think he was also. I saw him as an academician. He was academician. He was he knew what to say. You could tell the family, the family that he was brought up in. They had a system. You know, and it presented. It was about respect. You know, how they presented what they did, who they were. They knew that they had something to offer the society, I should say, and it wasn't to be, as far as I never took exception to it. I thought it was wonderful, you know, especially for me as a Black person. They were a model. And you know, and I think that family is a model to this day. You know,
and will be for centuries to come. I think their generations are going to continue going. You know,
I believe so too.
Yes, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now we go on to Mahavishnu Orchestra. Any of you people who are jam band fans who are watching this, or if you're fans of prog rock, if you're not familiar with Mahavishnu, you should check it out. It's absolutely one of the greatest prog rock bands ever. I'd love to talk about the initial genesis of the band. I know that you and John sat down and worked things out a lot just as a duo initially. Is that true?
Yeah, the MO started as a quote unquote, the line went after a recording session, John said, "Hey Billy, what are you doing tomorrow?" And he lived uptown, West Side, approximately, I think, around 76th Street or thereabouts, somewhere in that area, in Amsterdam or Columbus. And I was living in the Village on Jane Street, kind of subbing for anybody and trying to just pick up work wherever, however I could, but I wasn't doing a whole lot at all. So I said, yeah, man, okay. I think the date that I had finished was I was filling in, of course, for Grady Tate, who was like my mentor. He was either Grady or Bobby Thomas or Mickey Roker, or anybody that needed somebody, or Mel Lewis if they needed me to fill in just to cover some bases here or there. I was there. And the thing, what I brought to the table was that as I said yes, I was there, not exactly when we started, but at least a half an hour to an hour before, just to make sure that I really was there and I could play exactly when we needed to start. So they knew that in me, and so I gained their confidence, which was one of the lessons I learned from a lot of those guys, and from Hubert Laws to Ron Carter to Roland Hanna to Tom McIntosh to all these guys. He used to say, you can play, but can you be on time?
As a drummer, you got to be on time.
Well, that's just it. There's a confusing bit about that. As a drummer, you have to be on time. Yeah, you got to play a good time. And many drummers would say, yeah, I can play good time. It wasn't to play good time alone. It was to be on time so you could play good time.
Didn't you lose a gig with Billy Taylor because of that?
There you go. And that's how I mean, again, all those things come, and that's how you, and not to mention pre-Billy Taylor, we're talking the United States Army Band. You don't on time, you go to jail.
Oh, yeah.
Done. So it's just that, your AOL, absent without leave, or AWOL, you go to jail. So you do learn. You fix the bed. All these things become, the discipline side has to be there. Yeah, you play your buns off, but if you can play your buns off and be in jail and not having, it's like you need to put one foot out in front of the other and make sure you don't step on the one in the back. It's like, come on. And it's not easy for a lot of people. But if you take that one and I think really learn your craft, you will work until you're sick of working, because a whole lot of people don't do that. And that's a big plus.
But take us into that room. Two great minds, John McLaughlin,
Mm-hmm.
Billy Cobham, starting this band.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Did the ideas flow? Was it easy? Was it tough at first, or was it easy flowing, come together and so forth on ethos, on songwriting, whatever?
My fault. I should have. It didn't follow through. I went off on a tangent. But what I meant to say as well.
I helped a tangent.
This was John's thing. This was no, but true. I go in that route, but what I meant, I wanted to make sure you understood is that it wasn't my band. John came to me, asked me if he had some stuff he wanted to hear, and wondered if I just joined him to play on it, without me knowing anything about where we're going next. And I needed to play, so I said, yeah. That's cutting to the quick. Showed up, we worked that day, and I can't even, it was so much fun just playing, because guitar, drums, and we both had a good solid sense of time, and he had something that I needed to get really sorted out in my head about playing, and that was how to make transitions from 4/4 to 3/4 to 2/4 to 6/4 to 11 to whatever, but make it flow. I remembered working with Herbie Hancock a few months before, and feeling very, very uncomfortable about playing Eye of the Hurricane, things like this. I couldn't understand the concept of, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. That's easy now. But it wasn't, and I was thinking about numbers. And I realized that at some point in time, I have to learn how to make it a flowing thing, where it's transitional, where it's just life. You're walking in 4 and all of a sudden you're in 3, and it should be like that. The transition should be so seamless that it's like, it should not be realized that you're in another meter. And that's not easily done. Just as easily as it not being possible for some, not so, I shouldn't say possible, it's not very, very easy to play in a marching band where you go and then try to make that groove to get to no, that comes with time, understanding that there's a flow that has to develop in your mind to make that happen. And it can be done. It's just that you have to get those shackles off of discipline, because now you have more than you need, and you have more fluidity and flexibility in the platform of jazz or rock than you would have in a marching band. You have to understand these concepts, develop this interest in yourself, and develop a sense of security that you can and be comfortable with, so that you can make those transitions. And playing with John helped me to do that.
And then Jan Hammer was a part of that band. How early on was it decided to invite him in? And was that all John's idea? What was behind Jan Hammer becoming a part of that?
Jan came after Jerry. And Jan was working with Sarah Vaughan. I mean, he was the perfect person for it. And so it was really easy. When he came in, what was really special about Jan is that he knew how to play the drums. His favorite drummer was Elvin. Okay, he was already, and he played like Elvin, and that was wonderful to hear, because it made it made it easier for me to connect with him. And so he was like, he understood the feeling. One of the most difficult rhythms to play in drumming, in rock and jazz, is the triplet. And he knew how he felt very comfortable with that flow. And that made it a lot easier for me. He knew where I was going. He knew right away, when I was going to play something. I didn't have to look at him. I didn't have to set him up for things. He knew exactly what was happening. Okay.
Yeah, that organic feel, yeah.
So that happened, but he came after Jerry. And of course, the last person to join the band was Rick.
Rick Laird.
Yeah, and he was my anchor. Okay. Again, Rick understood where I was going or what we were doing, but I had to make adjustments. As each person came in the band, I had to make an adjustment. And to this, only recently, interestingly enough, and I feel very comfortable saying these things, because I understood that some things I missed. I did not understand the genius of Jerry Goodman then. I didn't. For me, it was a lot of notes, and so I could deal with it, but I didn't get it. I just didn't understand it. After years and years and years of not listening to violinists, generally speaking, and then going back and listening to Jerry on many things that he did after that, it all made sense now. That music is the music that John wrote in that period probably it's a treasure chest of all kinds of things that you can learn from it. I don't know if I would have been able to understand how to incorporate a bassoonist in my music until now.
Paul Hansen.
Bassoon for what? Why? Absolute aggression in the wrong direction. Because again, ignorance can be like that. Unknowing, not. You have to have the experience. You have to make the mistake. You have to be. In order to gain from it the positive, you will be negative. It's not. You'll either run away and blow the opportunity, or you'll say, "Man, you sound awful." And that's just the other part of that point is that you sound awful because I don't understand what you're doing. So until you understand, you can't really enjoy the situation.
I just want to say real quick, Billy's been working with Paul Hansen in his band last fall. And we talk about the story about how Billy reconnected with Paul and about how important bassoon is to the time-lapse photos, the Crosswinds project in the podcast episode. So we don't have to do that now. But I do want to ask this. When I talk to people who attended or played music in the 70s, over and over again, I hear about crappy sound systems, crappy monitor systems, and you're in Mahavishnu Orchestra playing this intricate music where it seems like you have to hear each other in order to play it right. How often did you have ideal monitor systems and were in an ideal sonic setting, and how often did you just have to make the best with what was given to you?
Oh, good question, Rob.
Thank you.
I think that most of the time, the music transcended all of that for us. And for me, I just wanted to be able to hear, and not just hear, but feel synchronously what John, Rick, Jerry, and Jan did. And if I was in sync with them, unfortunately, for everything else, I just shut it all out. And in the end, I don't know if you saw me, but I had my hearing aids in, and that has a lot to do with the fact that my ears got just blown out. I have 20% of less hearing ability now than I had when I started. I mean,
sorry, what?
Hearing aids. Okay, I had to have that at some point in time. And now at 76, yes, and it has gradually come down to about loss of top end hearing. So I have had to rebuild that in order to continue to produce recordings. But I didn't care how loud the music was, as long as I could hear and feel what everybody else was doing. And that started to happen as I became more secure with the band as a unit, because we played so many dates. I knew what was coming from everybody. And I knew and so I felt comfortable in what I could offer to the table musically when it came to playing in the show. So therefore, everything was very comfortable for me, and I was just having a ball. There were some good sound systems, yes, and we did have some very strong, technically sound people to run them. But they were secondary to what the band was doing on the bandstand.
Now, a lot of the people listening are fans of this genre called jam bands, and one of the bands that's actually been more supportive of the show than anyone is one called Humphreys and McGee. By the way, they've recorded at Abbey Road Studios, and I have the mug to prove it. But they do long shows, 2 set shows, longer than most bands, but shorter than most jam bands. But one of the main reasons for that is the sound is driven by their drummer, a guy by the name of Chris Myers, who is just a punishing, relentless drummer. But there's only so much that, there's only so long you can do that. Was the length of Mahavishnu Orchestra performances dictated at all by the workout that you had to get playing? I mean, if folks, you go look at Mahavishnu, he was just no. Go ahead, do tell.
Everybody had something to say. Mostly, that music was designed so that I had a drum solo throughout every tune. I just played, but it wasn't a drum solo so much as it being able to enhance and support my colleagues. And so time would go by. My only break was when we played Lotus on an Irish Stream or whatever that called. It was a ballad. Rest of the time, it was bloody. It was brutal. But at the same time, we just played. Next thing you know, I mean, I played through in Montreux in I can't remember exactly when. Maybe it might have been 72, or the Montreux we played in 73. I don't know. But I played through. I cut my wrist on this side, or was it this side? I can't remember. It had to be like so. And so I was bleeding from here. And it was the last tune. It might have been Awakening or something like this. And we couldn't stop. But the drumsticks was slipping out of my hand because of the blood. And by then we had been playing about 3 hours. And easily, because that was 3 hours to 3.5 hours is when we played. We played really long sets. And there was a lot of information coming. I started to get a cramp, and I remember mind over matter. And I said, I can't stop now. So we're just going to have to get through this. And I know that once I stop, I'm going to be in serious pain because I don't have the blood. It's coming out. It's coming out. It's pulsing out. So next thing you know, we're rocking. We're rocking. We finally finish. And I in the middle of all of that, I have to play a solo and everything. When it was over, I don't remember how I got back to the hotel. And it fixed the hand. All I remember is that we finished the show.
Yeah. And
everything was fine. This is in the same location, I think. Yeah, that was a year. I think 72 was a year that the center, it wasn't a convention center, so to speak, but it was a hall where you had the shows. It was about 3,000 seats, and it had burned down with Zappa's band.
I know it well.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
so
that.
We came in the following year, and I bashed against the rim, the upper rim of my snare drum somehow. My old Ludwig backup snare drum that I had, and I just started bleeding, and it was an interesting time, but it was just another day. It was something that to talk about, and you don't play with it with an eye on the clock. If the band is rocking, the music demands it. Somehow you get it done.
Nice to hear that. And by the way, any musicians who play that room, I'd burn some sage before you do so, because it sounds like there's some bad mojo. Can you talk about John McLaughlin? Talk about how your relationship with him has evolved over the years, and where does it stand today?
Well, where does it stand today? I guess we're okay. I speak to John very, very rarely. But just in different parts of the world doing different things. I don't know. Nothing bad. We're not in touch. We were never really good friends to begin with. It was a business situation. Again, I felt he knew he could depend on me for what I had, for what he needed. And I was there, done. No problems. After the 73 show, there was a lot of bad feelings. I was disappointed. I was in that I knew that we had a conversation way back then in 73 where it appeared that the band, I knew the band was going to change. And he told me that he wanted me to continue on. Then the next thing I know, literally, it's kind of difficult to not get a feeling of insecurity when you have another drummer sitting on the ground behind you. And this guy was I didn't know his name at the time, except I didn't know it was Michael Walden, and I thought it was somebody named Narada, and I didn't know who that was at the time. And he was I forget what they call it, because he was in this religious sect with John. I got the whim that it was on one side, they all wanted to have a kind of a special seat to sit down and watch how the band functioned. And so this kid sat behind me, smiling all the time. Okay. But at the same time, man, I'm from New York. I mean, come on, it's a little bit too much now. Come on, so obviously this guy's here to learn, to see if he can do exactly what I do, which is okay, because my objective for playing is that once I play, it's not mine anymore. If you can do it, God bless you, no problem. All right, because I've moved on. I can't do that again unless I really need to. And whatever I'm going to do with that band, maybe it is a good model. I didn't expect the band to stay together very long because we played a lot together, but I could see it, so I just sort of, within myself, was clear. Something's not right, but we'll see what happens. Somebody will tell me. I didn't expect John to tell me, which he didn't. It's just that I got a pink slip at the end of the year that said that you're no longer at the band. So that didn't hit well. And next thing I know, by then I had also recorded an album of my own, which was not intended to compete with anybody. I just decided to try to get that more for working purposes, to give an example of what I could do and maybe get a club gig here and there, not knowing for maybe 6 months after the recording had been released that it was a hit. Never thought about it, and that was Spectrum. So when that happened, then things just sort of really went in different directions. And on occasions, I had John McLaughlin opening for me. And that was not my intention either. It's just the way things went, you know. Yeah. You know, all those things of opening and closing and who has the name on the marquee first and all. That's the middle people who represent the different artists driving the artists against each other. That's all that is, you know. And generally speaking, artists don't think about that until somebody says, hey, you know what this guy did to you or said about you or so and so and so, or this girl. And that's the downside of the music business, you know. And you got, it's the yin, it's the yang, and you know, that has to go with the yin, you know. It's the way it is.
Now, Love, Devotion, Surrender is a legendary record that John McLaughlin did with Carlos Santana. You were part of that project too, right?
Yeah, in part. I have no idea. I mean, and so was Larry Young. I mean, it was a nice thing to do. I remember you, Larry. We went to Japan. We did Canada. I think we went to Japan. I can't even remember for sure. But we did go to Canada. We played in Montreal. I had a ball. It was really lots of fun to do it. But after that, I heard that Jan had played on some drum tracks on it. I don't know. I never paid that much more attention to it at all. Because I haven't had a really strong, I think the one thing about Carlos Santana that stands out for me, he's always been the most amazing, he had the most amazing sound of the guitar. It's like no other guitars I've ever heard.
Instantly identifiable.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a balladeer. If he played ballads, and you know, he could just play something and you go, good. He'd make you cry, you know,
like Europa.
And okay, that's good. And I really respect that, you know, but different direction for me, you know, and so hence we never played again together.
Now, when you and I did this interview, Ira Gross was the engineer with me. We got to chat, and he really took me to task afterwards because I didn't ask you about Jack Bruce came up, and then I ran out of time before we got to follow. Yeah. Can you talk about how? Go ahead.
Things we like. Yeah.
You call him the voice of rock and roll. You loved his singing first, right?
First and foremost. Otherwise, when he played bass, he was like a bull in the china shop. Yeah, it was all right. It was just in your face. Immediately.
And that's why you didn't like Cream, right? Or not, well, let's not say didn't like, that's why you didn't have as much of an appreciation for Cream as you did for Derek and the Dominoes, perhaps, was the reckless nature of the performance.
Yeah, I mean, the drummer for me just didn't make it. I could work with the bass player and the guitarist any day, you know, but the drummer just didn't make it for me. No. And that was their Achilles heel, as far as I was concerned, for me. But again, you throw in a good marketing organization, hey, anything's possible. Anything. You could sell, if Monk had I've always said, if Monk had a great marketing organization, he would be even bigger than he is now. He would have had hit record after hit record. Some of the craziest things, you know, Little Rudy Tooty and things like this, you go, come on, what? But if the ad agency, just like they changed the name of jazz and what it means, you know, they can do all of that. It's about not just the money, but where you place it and with whom. You know.
So did you and Jack have to iron out how things? I mean, since you loved his singing, but weren't always on board with his bass playing. Was there kind of a meeting of the minds before that project about?
No, not as far as I didn't have to. No, you never talk. If you have to talk to your fellow musicians, you might as well not go on the bandstand. No, I love Jack's playing, and I knew exactly what to do to try to blend into for that, which was to play simpler, more directly, because I knew I had a great keyboard player in Stu Goldberg. And you know, in that picture, there's all these kind of things that you learn. You don't play music to compete with each other. You play music to create as a unit, to combine your ideas together. You do that, and every day is a good day.
So music isn't a competitive sport?
Not at all, man. Look, have you seen Michael Jordan's documentary?
We were just talking about that last night, Rob.
Yeah, I don't think it's a documentary, but it's more of a fluff piece, but I've heard good things about it.
What I'm saying about it is that it's about Michael and how competitive he is.
Yeah.
And he had a position. He was the guy to score the points, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But without him, without Scottie Pippen, without Dennis Rodman, Horace Grant, Steve Kerr, John Paxton, and it goes on and on. Bill Cartwright, it goes on and on and on. Michael Jordan could have scored. He could have been. Oh man, I'm forgetting it. Played for the Cincinnati.
Oscar Robertson.
Oscar. No chance, man. He would have been Oscar. Yeah, he would have made the Hall of Fame. So, but
I'll underscore your point very strong, Billy. Michael Jordan's rookie year, game 2 against the Celtics. Mm-hmm. He scored 63 points and they lost in double overtime. I have since learned it was a spoken strategy on the Celtics bench to let Jordan light it up and take his own other players out of the team. And it wasn't until he learned to incorporate his teammates that he started winning championships.
There you go. And it's spoken about. He can't do it all. And on the other hand, the administration of the Bulls, what they did to Scottie Pippen is criminal. They let him sign a 7-year deal because they knew they could get him on the cheap for 7. But they knew it was stupid. He said, "What are you signing something like that for?" He needed money to take care of his folks. They didn't care. They knew what they had, and they didn't care. Jerry Krause, and the owner, such a shame. And then they could, it's business. It's business. They could have won 8.
Hey, do you remember playing Essen Germany in that band with Jack Bruce and the Police were on the bill?
We were rocking. It scared them half to death. I loved it. When we played there, it was Eurovision night. And we did that whole Bird Alone thing. And I think, man, Clem and David, they were on another level. They were playing their buns off. And when we came off the bandstand, I walked past. I'm coming up, walking past Sting, and Sting going, "Wah!" Because they had the calls. That wasn't so much fun.
All right, now we talk about Bobby and the Midnights and the Grateful Dead a good bit in the podcast that comes out tomorrow, but I do want to ask about the bassist. First, it was Alphonso Johnson, and then it was Kenny.
Alphonso.
Yeah, and then he was replaced by Kenny Gradney, I think grossly underrated bassist from the iconic band Little Feat. We just lost Paul Barrera from Little Feat. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about Alphonso and Kenny and talk about being in a band where that change is made and how it impacted you?
What Alphonso had established in that band was a level of discipline, and I had to look at it that way because he played so few notes, but every note was the right one. So he would come up with these lines, but the spaces in the middle were more important than the lines because there was so much of it. So I had to not play to fill the space. I had to stop and think about this. And it taught me a lot, so I could play with him and not against him or back away, but to work with this concept. I felt it was very important for the personality of the Midnights.
To just play what was needed.
Always, yeah. But you see, just play what was needed is the cradle of any band to make the music personal, the musical personality present itself as a unit. I learned a lot about that. with Alfonso. So once that was happening, and I, especially with Weir, who only is playing rhythm, he's bouncing around the stage, he's singing, blah blah. But the guitar player in the band, that nobody's talking about, is the big elephant in the room. Yes.
Seth, make the noise, Seth.
Right. And there you have where it was really solid, man. With him, Dave Garland, we had a band. A lot of things could happen. Unfortunately, we had, as good as that band was, we had terrible management. So therefore, the bottom fell out.
But how about Kenny Gradney? What do you remember about him, and how did it change for you?
Easily didn't change at all. Kenny just was like a glove. He came in because I was used to it. By then, I had experiences with Alfonso out of the Cobham Duke band. Then he came into this band. It all made sense.
But had you had experiences with Kenny Gradney as a listener or a performer previous to that? Were you aware of Little Feat?
Just a little bit, but I hadn't listened to a lot. But what I heard from the Bobby and the Midnights was the fact that we needed a sense of security, a really easy band to work with. So therefore, when we went from the Bobby and the Midnights thing into Jazz is Dead, it was like an easy transition for all of it, And it was a good period for me to study and learn. Part of that whole period for me also was, again, at the foundation was Jack, Bruce, and Friends. And Jack was in a different way, So all of that connected, And for me personally, I had some good bass players who understood the rock scene, the market situation, and helped me through certain things to like weed out what I didn't need to play, as per like Mahavishnu. Again, having a record like Spectrum, and if I had more time with Tommy, with Bolin, probably it would have been a lot better for me, even more. Because I just needed to learn how to not play what was not necessary, to play 2/3 less and get 2/3 more out of everything.
Not a lot of people met Tommy Bolin that I've spoken to. What are your memories of Tommy?
A smile. A young person who's very happy. But yet at the same time, the eyes were sad. I felt that he was a little bit alone. But I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. I just know that life was going by real fast for him. So I was as much as tremendously sad I was about his loss in about 1977, I think it was that it happened, thereabouts. I was also understanding that this guy was on his own in many ways. There was a lot of things going. He had a hit record. At the time, Michael Walden was playing in the band with him. And Michael singing, great voice, all that thing was going. That stuff was going really fast. And when that happens, like with Amy Winehouse or something, they're here and then they're gone.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now let me ask you something. You brought up Jazz is Dead. One thing I've heard you often allude to, but never elaborate upon, is that the jazz community was not thrilled with the name Jazz is Dead. Is that true?
They didn't understand. They didn't understand that we were playing the music of the Grateful Dead. And so...
they were taking it literally. Why did that not occur to me?
Why? Because they have...
Because it seems so obviously sarcastic to me.
Well, I mean, you're making the assumption that everyone knows in the jazz community the Grateful Dead, Rob.
The jazz environment, it's always about thugs, like, oh, you think you're good, you think you think, no, man.
But is there...
It's not that complicated,
Is there... What is the feeling in jazz community? Because quite frankly, sometimes I get the sense that jazz fans look down their nose on the Dead's improv or whatever, and they have every right to have whatever feelings. So. But the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people into jazz now who found it through the Grateful Dead. How aware are people in the jazz world of that fact, which is a fact?
I don't know, because I'm not considered a jazz musician in the jazz world. Until it's time to pick me up off the shelf to sell something in the jazz world. This again gets into Rob. It's all about business, man. Nothing personal, you know. Hey, you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask. Okay, does that make you a Democrat or a Republican? You know, that it's all about business, man. And as soon as the dust clears, he said, "Well, how many people died today?" Well, it was just business. Right. Nothing personal. That's not true.
It's weird to me that you've always felt like an outsider in the jazz community, and then there's people who never even met Miles Davis who consider themselves insiders, and you freaking played with them.
Wow. So I mean, I was honored. It's about the music, what you bring to the table. Labels are for Madison Avenue. That's where that's where it ends. You know,
labels are exactly what they are. They label you. You know what I mean?
It is. So we leave that alone and we talk about things that have more substance. There you go.
And you got to play like Wake of the Flood stuff, Blues for Allah stuff, real jazzy compositions, some of which the Dead had kind of abandoned at that point, or I guess this is post loss of Garcia, but at the end of the Dead, they bailed on a lot of that material, and you guys boldly ventured right into it.
Oh, I loved it, man. Franklin's Tower and all that stuff was so much fun to play. I loved it. I said, this guy just never got his due, you know. For whatever.
He got his morning due.
I will leave it alone.
You know, we mentioned Branford earlier, and one thing, Branford Marsalis, like I told you, I used to hang out with him and stuff. Really sweet guy, or he used to be a really sweet guy. Don't know about now, but just saying, I just don't know. But he would say that Deadheads tended to dance to the melody as opposed to the rhythm. Whereas in my prime, and it happens once in a while, at my best, I could do both. Part of my body be doing the melody, part of my body, but that took a lot of experience. And as an old part, I can't.
Got to hold on to your drink here.
With that music and the tap of acid, and anything could happen. You know. I remember Radio City Music Hall, where they came there for, I think it was a week or 10 days. I can't remember. I was doing double duty because I was also
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, upstairs, and downstairs I was with the Dick and Rhythm Devils. I don't know how I did that. And I had one small experience where I was thirsty and God, it happened. I went by accident, took a tablespoonful of something I shouldn't have. I don't know. It was a punch bowl, and I got bashed. I didn't get punched. Yeah. And I swore up and down I'd never do that again. As a matter of fact, I then decided not to do Saturday Night Live. I couldn't handle it. It was like, it was either I was on the bandstand trying to stay out of trouble, and you could see only the lower part of my drum set. You couldn't see the Tama sign because there was a cloud there. And everybody on the bandstand was part of that cloud. You know, and then I have to go downstairs and walk onto the bandstand with another cloud, you know, and oh boy, and enjoy every minute of it at the same time, as much as I could, because I was totally out of my league, man. I had no idea what I was doing, you know. But with Mickey Hart and Kreuzman, they helped me through somehow. And I Airdo too, you know.
People have discovered you many, many different ways, and one of them I found is Peter Gabriel. A lot of people didn't hear of you until you were Peter Gabriel. Can you talk about how that started and what he was like to work with?
A sweetheart. If anything, he was a guiding light for me. And again, because I had so few opportunities to play in the rock industry, and learning how to. That was my first taste of working with in-ear monitors. What a trip. All kinds of things that happened there. But because of him, I was exposed. I didn't understand until I had to do it and get seasick from watching on the average, between 85 and 100,000 people in front of me moving. it was like a C. So my brain was going, what is that movement? Is that, it can't be water. Here we're in the Nürburgring Ring, a major Formula One racetrack, and we're in a little spit of it all, and we have 85,000 people. And the first, to be honest, 5,000 to 10,000 I could handle. They're running into each other. This was like this whole bashing thing that they were going through back then, where they're dancing and they're jumping up and they're running into each other. Again, not totally understanding where they are because they are on something. But you know, we're doing the sledgehammer stuff and all. And I'm going, wow, man, this is amazing. So what I would have to play to fit into Manu Katché's approach to playing Peter's music was why I took the gig. I said, man, I need to study and understand how Manu does this. And out of this, I mean, it's important to, again, it's always fell back to playing just the notes that made everybody feel good. And I learned so much from that, paying attention to what's happening on the stage, who was doing what, enjoying, but at the same time, as a fan, enjoying Paula Coles, of course, Peter, working with Tony Levin, David Rhodes. You know, it was just like I couldn't ask for more. My big problem was, and I think it's funny how things work. I would like to believe that if I did not have to take the next project that I had already locked onto, which was to work with Stanley Clarke.
He's been on our show, by the way.
On a tour of the U.S. That was the last time I played with him, on a big long tour with guitar player, I forget his name. It was like we made that record live at the Stanley Clarke Live in one of those open air theaters in Los Angeles. I got to tell you, man, it was just, I needed one more day. I would have played right then. The last concert for Peter Gabriel with me would have been Woodstock Revisited. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get out of the contract of the promoter there. And Pete needed somebody to play, but I was already locked in to this other thing. And if I had played that, I would like to believe that I might still be with Peter Gabriel today.
Was Larry Carlton the guitarist you were thinking of?
Larry Carlton was the guy, yeah.
Two more questions.
Yeah.
Two more questions to Peter Gabriel, and then we'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you talk about only playing what needs to be played. To what extent was Peter exacting in bringing that to you, and to what extent was that you just finding the notes and bringing what you felt was what needed to be played?
Peter gave me my head and let me do what I had to do. And we used to play in between in sound checks. I just play a groove to get balances. And Peter just come up and start to play guitar because he liked the groove. Next thing you know, he's writing a tune. That's an honor. For me, he's saying, that works. I can do this, I can do that. And they recorded. So Big Blue Ball, all kinds of things like that would come.
And you mentioned, go ahead.
It was just my way. It was just my way. I just wanted to get more and more comfortable with what he was doing. And when I had to stop, I said, how are you feeling, man? He said, well, you're about 85% there. And I said, yeah, I wish I could spend more time because I know there's room to grow. I was supposed to do the opening of Wembley with him, but it was my wife. It was our wedding anniversary, and it was exactly that day, and I just couldn't do it for myself personally. I had to just back off. You know, sometimes these things happen. It's like my George Benson wanted me to record with him on a day that my daughter was graduating from the University of Minnesota, and I couldn't get out of it. I mean, I wouldn't do that. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good father.
No, I mean, well, I don't know. It's just how many times at the time. I'm not going to see this happen. I have 4 daughters, and they all got through it. But every time, yeah, you got to be there for those situations. That's important. Like weddings, I mean, you just don't walk off and say, "Hey, I got a gig." But that's me, It's just me.
No, that's a challenge. That's true. That's true.
He's the father. I'm not in this duo. So what about
Get
Peter's?
ready?
Do any of Peter's? I mean, you mentioned Sledgehammer, but as a drummer, as far as being enjoyable to perform, does any of his material stick out to you?
Right now, no. Not because it wasn't any good. I was never good at names.
Right.
Everything we played, I loved. I just don't remember what the names were.
What about this, Billy? What your experience with all of these rock artists, for better or worse, how has that influenced your audience when you play your music?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, let me offer
Rob, you got to ask his label.
Well, I'll say this. I go see great Billy like that. Well done, Seth. But I see a lot of jazz artists play amazing shows, and they'll get. When I see Billy Cobham, the crowd at the end is electric. Mm-hmm. Do you think, and part of that's the beauty you're playing, but do you think part of that's that you have a little more of a loose and responsive, a crowd that's not afraid to get a little crazy, and as long as they're listening while you're playing, get a little crazy when you're done in response?
Possible. Absolutely possible. It's possible. I can't say no. Because, when I get on the bandstand, tunnel vision is about who's on the bandstand.
Yeah.
I'm not watching anybody outside. I mean, some people say, man, we didn't sell a whole lot of tickets. And I'm saying, oh, what a drag. I'm sorry more for the promoter. Because that means I've got to double down and make sure that I do my job with my people. Because even though people may not show up, if we play our buns off, maybe they'll show up the next time. I don't know, but I have to take the shot. We have a chance to play. Why would I not want to play my ass off? And who else is in the audience? And honestly, that never happened. Even though I said, yeah, we didn't get a lot of people, we didn't sell. And then all of a sudden the place is full. And then you understand the promoters just winding us up, don't want to pay the money, doesn't want to make us look good. I mean, their background, it's a whole lot of stuff like that going on. And I'm just like, look, that's why we make flat deals. Got paid, I'm going, ciao, whatever.
What do you think about rock drummers who have like Terry Bozzio or Neil Peart, or is it Peart? I don't know. I still don't know. They have these huge, elaborate, like drum worlds surrounding them. What's your
Terry Bozzio is the real deal. Okay, I don't know Neil Peart. I mean, except I've spoken to him once. Okay, we did. It was a production thing for the Buddy Rich record on Hudson or something like that. After that was it. And I never spoke to him again. Rest in peace. But the thing is, Terry Bozzio, a great creator of ideas and stuff. Wonderful. I have his full cymbal set that was made by Billy Zildjian for him, and I got a full set of that, and it's still here with me. I use some things in some places. I mean, great. They remind me of the set of cymbals that Sabian made for Jack DeJohnette. It's just a little bit more, I should say, more in terms of quantity and tones. So Terry had great ideas for that. No problem. I can use it. I think that it's important because, again, he said, oh, we were in Japan and we played one date either in Nagoya or Osaka, where I played time for him, and he played lines on octobands. He had at least 24 a chromatic set of 24 octobands. And he said, blah, 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 and he was playing that, and I'm just playing time with him. And it was like wonderful, man. But again, the aesthetics of all that kind of stuff would really probably just fall flat on most of the people in the West, really. It was nice to see it happen in Japan, but how can you take all of that stuff around and do that every night? I don't think so. No.
I can't talk to a jazz drummer and not ask about Buddy Rich. You brought him up. I think if you go watch you go watch some video of Buddy. It's almost mind blowing. Some of the stuff
I would have gone and said it's enriching, but that's just me.
This is what I work with, Bill. Maybe Bill should be a third host.
Hey, listen, man, we're 125 in. I got to drop a little of the comedy.
But what about no? That wasn't comedy. That was a pun. Bill. Talk about Buddy Rich. Did you ever meet him? Did he influence you? Did he influence you? What was he like as a person?
Okay. Did I ever meet him? Yes. Where? Okay. Manny's 1959, 58. No, I passed the examination for the School of Performing Arts, Music and Art. And I was promised a drum set. Whatever my folks could afford to do. So they bought me a snare drum, of which I still have to this day. So Ludwig Super Sensitive, 1959. And Danny, who sold me the drum, one of the owners, my folks sent it. And it was a Silver Sparkle set. And he sold my parents a drum, and he said to my father, "Bill, how'd you like it if Buddy's is in the store? You want to have him sign it?" And my dad asked me if I wanted to. Yeah, sure. Why do I can't? I don't know. I never saw. I heard a lot about Buddy Rich, but if I saw him once on TV, it was a lot. Because these are the days of it. He was still playing with Harry James and those guys. And there was no Tonight Show. This was 4 or 5 years before that, easily. Next thing I know, if not more, he's coming up the stairs and they give him the drum and he goes to handle the drum and he drops the drum down the stairs. So of course I still have the dent in my snare drum. And that's how I met Buddy Rich. Signed it. Okay, next move. Fast forward to 1970, I don't know, 70, 73, I don't know, somewhere in there. Mahavishnu Orchestra. Big deal is that by this time I've won a Playboy Award, and they didn't like that. There was a problem because Buddy normally won the Playboy Awards. And then I came along and somebody decided to give it to me instead. It was like I really had anything to do with it past someone else's opinion. That didn't go over too well with Buddy. All those kind of things I remember, but still through all of that, all the way up to 1987 or thereabouts, which is when I think he passed away. He was an amazing, one of the few players that played with a tremendous amount of discipline, rudimentally and rhythmically. I felt he was much more of a rhythmicist in terms of the patterns that he would play. And I felt that based on his history, generally speaking, what little I knew, he was really into vaudeville. He was a good dancer. He had a flow from his dancing experiences and all of that, and it transferred itself to the drum set. And I took away from that little lessons that I felt it was important for me to get to the level that I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go, but I knew I needed to do something along those lines. What I found, those were things that are positive. I even found the things that I would like to add to those, which was to play more melodically, more harmonically. along with those other things, and that's what I choose to do now, and that's what I've been doing for the past 60 years as I play.
Yeah, you like to draw the sound out of the drum as opposed to strike the drum.
But first, you have to have the sound to draw it out. Okay, and the problem with Buddy for me was that he had speed. He's very, very articulate, but at a certain level of volume. Against him was working the fact that the drum heads that he had to work with were not necessarily the greatest in the world. There was a very limited version of Remo product around. Evans, so what? Now I don't know what he would do. But then again, he's still thinking the same way. It's a concept, and you can't only a dog can only learn new tricks for a while, and then after a while you're set. All right, get that. That's all good, as long if it's in your wheelhouse. For me, understanding how all the elements, as much as possible, that make a drum, and then how that drum is associated with other components, other drums and cymbals in your musical community as you play, now enhances and expands the personality that you would call your own. And so it's an ongoing process. So you have to stay in touch, like setting up the drums, to understand why drums don't happen, or this doesn't happen in a certain situation, or seeing when you play, when your crew has set up the drum set, it's not Madison Square Garden, it might be the Vanguard. So you don't expect to get the same thing from the same drum set in two different places, and understand why. And that's being extreme, but come on, you get to know. And also a big plus for me that he didn't have was this: I can hear better. I can be more discriminating about what I hear and how I blend things in. So all these things, technology has taken it to a different level. More than likely, I don't know if I don't think I'm accept my round. I should say, going out of my way, but I must say that if he were around today, I'm not too sure that he would be going through all of this stuff. He had set a certain set of parameters that worked for him, so he would not need to do that, especially with a big band that he's working with, and he knew the music. Phenomenal. That's just the tip of the iceberg of a lot of stuff that I've taken away from him by just watching as very few times that I have, and seeing how, and wondering how would it work for him now, as opposed to back in the day when he had to. I think that his personality back in the day was developed based on the fact that he needed to be protective and defensive and hold on to what he had, and so he played it buns off. And he was heads, hands, and feet over just about everybody. That doesn't necessarily have to be that way now. You see, it's not about playing fast, a lot of notes, tricks. No, it's about the notes you play that fit the music when it's necessary. That's different.
For those of you tuning in, Billy is very generously talking about all different sorts of musicians, and this is to promote a podcast that's coming out tomorrow on the Osiris Media platform. Inside Out wTnS is our show. It's Billy Cobham talks a lot about himself and a lot about time-lapse photos, which is the reimagining of his Crosswinds legendary record from years ago. So if you don't worry, you watch that podcast, you'll hear Billy talk about himself and the whole ethos, but we're just kind of picking his brain on other musicians right now. Billy, about 30 years ago, I got some time with Abby Lincoln. Wonderful, wonderful singer. And despite the fact that she had been divorced from Max Roach, she had nothing but glowing things to say about Max Roach. Can you talk about why he is such an admired and envied person in the jazz scene on and off the stage?
No, I can't.
And thanks everybody for tuning in today.
Reason? I am not a jazz musician. See, so a lot of the things that you may think I can say, I really cannot. I'm just, if anything about Max, it's all about being a fan. And if I saw him in person more than 5 times where we could talk, it would be a lot. And it's over a span of 60 years. So there's not a whole lot that sticks with me, unfortunately. So with that one, guys, I got to get out of here. It's now past 4:00 my time.
Oh, okay. Here, one last question. I have to ask this.
No last questions. You can say goodbye.
Well, because we're on the Osiris Media platform, who've generally should put them on their YouTube channel. Okay, that's co-founded by the lyricist of Fish. What's his name again, Seth?
Tom Marshall.
Right. Have you heard of the band Fish, and what is your impression of them, if you have?
I have heard of them as a jam band. Number one, correct me if I'm wrong. And they used to play Madison Square Garden, right? A lot.
Still do. They got first right of refusal, I believe, for New Year's Eve there.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, they're blessed. I mean, they do something. That's obviously something works. What else can you do? Everybody's got their calling. That's great. I don't know much more. I know that they played music like the Dead, but I'm not quite sure. And so, being honest, and you can't go wrong. I mean, with all the quirky people in that original band, somehow something has to stick. That's why Graham said that the Dead are the only band that does what they do. But there's a reason, because they're the only band that does what they do. And so there you go.
And Fish is the only band that does what they do.
Thank you
so much, Billy. I love talking to you.
Do.
Thank you so much. Both times, it's just been such a treat, such a mind-blowing treat. The words don't exist. I hope we can talk again sometime. I'm being serious.
I know. Calm down.
Okay. Please. I'm going to record that and play that over and over again.
It's the coffee.
Thanks so much. Okay. We'll drop your episode this week, and we'll be back with more. And then next week we've got who's with us next week?
Dave Bruza of Green Sky Blu-ray.
Monday night,
cool.
June 1st.
Cool. Enjoy it, folks. Take care, you guys.
Hey, enjoy Panama, and stay safe and healthy.
Bye-bye.
Amana Plana Canal, Panama.
Oh, no. He's crazy.
Yes, he is.